So when you get stopped, we're going to bring up Frank Ski to lead this next panel. So everybody give it up for Frank Ski.
All right. So we all know that, of course, the video camera is our latest and greatest asset right now. The video camera has changed everything. The video camera on your phone is now the new leader of this whole movement. But we got to know what to do, when to do it. You know, it's very interesting that, as Reverend Jesse Jackson knows, when the civil rights movement started, those television cameras did the same thing. It was thought about. It was calculated. They understood what they were doing and why they were doing it. And those cameras changed a lot in America. Because for a long time, people didn't believe it was happening until they saw it on camera. Now they see it firsthand. These last couple videos that we saw online were very, very disturbing. And it was something that we had never seen before. And on most circumstances, it would have been something we would have never been able to see, but now we can see it. So to lead this discussion on our best weapon in public disclosure is the one and only attorney Robert Smith. If you would come up, with Smith Hurst, PLC in Nashville, Tennessee, assistant professor of the Department of Criminal Justice at Tennessee State University. Come on up, let's stand up. Let's do this like we're leading our discussion. Grab one of those microphones right there. I guess one of those should work.
Testing.
There you go. All right. So, like many people in the room, we all have a cell phone. I'll get mine so we can make sure that people have a visual as to what we're doing. We see an act happening. We break out our cell phone. What are our initial rights with the use of this cell phone?
All right. First of all, it's covered by the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. To conceptualize what our rights are, we must understand that the Constitution is there to protect the rights of citizens from government. One of those rights is the First Amendment. It comes under the concept of free speech. When one photographs or videotapes an incident, if they are in a public place, they have a duty and a right to record public officials in performing their functions. So if it is a public place, you may record it. You may record public officials performing their duties.
Now, I got the question. What if their duties that they're performing involve me?
For instance, if an officer is beating you up or something along those lines, is that what you're saying?
He pulls me over.
Mm-hmm.
He pulls me over. I know I didn't do anything wrong. I'm sitting in the car. I have my camera up. You're the officer. You walk up to the car. And when you walk up...
Well, I'm going to join in with my fellow lawyer who will indicate to you, you may be in a situation of escalating a circumstance. What you would want to do, as he's indicated, is you should press record. Remember, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Often when we go to court representing people in these controversies, it is the officer's word against the citizen's word, particularly the African-American citizen. Juries tend not to go with us in that regard. The police officers are given great belief, even when I know they're lying, which shocked me when I started practicing law 39 years ago. I did not know they lie. I thought they told the truth. But it is not so. So you would not want to escalate that circumstance. Now, I thought the young lady in the most recent incident in Minnesota handled that matter very effectively. And one of the things that she did that we should all take note of is that she complied even when the officer was asking her to do things. One of the things, and I echo the sentiments of my fellow lawyer, we cannot win in a controversy or in a physical fight in those circumstances. The officer will always win.
But let's go back to that video of the woman in the car. The video that we saw is after he was shot.
Right.
So the question as they go into court now is what happened before? So in that circumstance, we would have all liked to have seen on video what happened when he got pulled over. Mm-hmm. But you're saying that could have escalated the situation.
If you were the one pulled over, so you're going to hold the camera at the officer such as that?
That is escalating.
What is he going to do? Now, it can serve one of two purposes. One, it can deter him perhaps from doing anything that is unconstitutional or illegal. Well, on the other hand, it may escalate the circumstance.
What happens if I'm the passenger?
If you're the passenger, then go ahead and do so. Go ahead and do so. Are you violating a right?
So,
Are you exercising a constitutional
I'm
right?
exercising my constitution, but then the officer says, hey, put the camera down.
All right. And he can say that. Once again, you have a constitutional right to record in a public place an officer performing a public duty. But the officer, if he insists, one of his rights is that you are not to interfere with police operations or interfere with the police doing his duty. So the question arises, is this an interference with the officer performing his duty? If he asks you to put the camera down and you refuse, does that result in then a charge of obstructing justice, interfering with the police doing his duty, or disorderly conduct? Sometimes freedom requires risk.
Oh. All right. So you're saying that I could be putting the situation at risk by recording?
Yes, but we understand that. Everyone understands that. But passengers have recorded circumstances. But ideally, it would be if there's a citizen, as many of these videos have shown, a citizen who is not involved in the circumstances, who is a distance from the scene, who is recording what is taking place. That would be our preference. But that's not always the case. But if the passenger can do so and do so safely, then do so.
So let's go to the next set of circumstances. I'm witnessing a situation. He pulls you over. I'm on the sidewalk right here. I start recording. Now they're telling me to back up, but I was on the sidewalk. How far, when they say back up, how far is back up?
Every situation...
Because they're trying to get me to back up so I don't see anything.
Yeah, I understand. Every situation is based on the facts of those circumstances. You have the right, first of all, if you understand and you conceptualize this, you have the right to record. Technically, his concern would be this is now a crime scene or a scene. As such, he does not want it contaminated. So what we want to do is not become part of the scene, but to record the scene. So if he asks you to back up, it suggests that you take a step back. All right? And so I've taken a step back, but you're still recording.
But what they do to us is back up. I said back up, move, back up, get back. And I'm like, whoa, I'm back.
So what degree of, there is no technically written saying you have to be 10 feet away from the scene, you have to be 5 feet away from the scene. What you don't want to do is become part of the scene.
Got it.
You are recording it. Now, can the officer take your camera? No. It would require a warrant. That's the Fourth Amendment right of the United States Constitution in order to seize that camera. If he makes an arrest, he then may seize that camera.
In the case of the woman that was in the car, she's in the car, they handcuffed her, they took her camera. But you just said they can't take your camera. Why did she become part of it? She wasn't doing anything.
I agree with that.
She was the passenger. Why did they handcuff her and take her out the car?
Well, I agree with that. She was doing nothing. So what is the officer suggesting they're doing? They're investigating the scene of a crime or the scene of a shooting. And what they would say is, we're not sure who, what, when, where, so we're taking everybody into custody.
Got it.
But what we do have is the right to sue. You can only be arrested if there's probable cause that you have committed a crime, that a crime has been committed, and that you're the person that committed it. Now, they also have the right, and our fellow lawyer spoke to that, of what's called stop and frisk. That means they can approach a citizen if they have a reasonable suspicion based upon specific articulable facts that a crime has been committed. They may stop that citizen, pat him down for a weapon, and seize not only a weapon, but any other contraband that one does not possess. In her circumstance, she did nothing wrong. They may be able to say, well, why not just pull over and talk to her? Why did you make the arrest? Once you've been seized, seizure is a violation of the Fourth Amendment. A seizure is when you do not feel free to leave, you have then been arrested, whether you're handcuffed or not. That is an arrest. That's a violation of the Constitution. You bring suit. Now watch this, for instance. The gentleman who took the photo in Baton Rouge, I think he was Indian or Arab or something along those lines. They arrested him, or at least they detained him and took his camera. They handcuffed him and took his camera. He brought suit today. It's a violation of the Fourth Amendment and the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. That's one of the ways we will have to fight this. The courts have always during the civil rights period, and I don't have to explain that to anybody in Atlanta, the courts have always been the avenue by which we are able to make the Constitution a reality. At Howard University Law School, one of the things we were taught is simply this. The lawyers from Howard and the other civil rights lawyers blew the breath of life into the Constitution. Prior to that, it was simply a piece of paper. But those lawyers went out, they litigated, they made those rights real, and we have the benefit of them, and we must use them. We cannot, we don't want to die fighting with those people. You can't beat this guy up. Even if you pulled it off, you're not going to get away from the scene.
Let me ask you a question. If they take my camera and I'm recording, can he turn the video off? Can he delete my video?
It is unconstitutional. They need a warrant to even open your phone, read your text message, look at your videos or anything else. It is a violation of the Constitution. If they destroy the images on the phone, it then is an obstruction of justice, which is a felony, and they can be prosecuted. But it is a constitutional right for you to record. It is against the Constitution for them to delete or destroy anything on the phone. They must get a search warrant to utilize the information on that phone.
At what point, when the officer approaches you, you have your camera, you're videotaping, obviously he's going to ask you for your name. At what point can you ask him his name on camera?
You can ask him immediately. Actually, if you look at his badge, read his name and his number.
Because I know in all these videos, we're always wondering till later who the police officer was. I would have liked to have known right away, because it seems like the police department is protecting these people for so much amount of time, are they?
Well, that's one of the things probably has led to a lot of the difficulties we've had. Whenever these shootings take place, would it not have been comforting had the police come out and said immediately, that officer was wrong? But it's a stonewall all the way across the country. We can see it. We know that it's wrong. And if they would but admit that, a lot of the tension, but instead they declare their innocence. But yes, ask that officer his name. Does it not look bad on tape that he wouldn't give his name? Whenever we don't give a name, then it seems like we're hiding something. We're a criminal. What is your name? Officer, I see your badge number is 7011, whatever it may be. That's at least an identifying number that can thus be followed up upon.
Then I guess my last question, and we'll take some questions from the audience. Should you tell the police officer, I am recording this?
Yes. Now, one thing that we have to be cautious about is secret recordings. Secret recordings are something that for instance, and it depends on your state law, and you must always check your state law. States have privacy laws that prevent secret recordings. For instance, if you're recording a phone conversation and you're not a party to that phone conversation, that is illegal and you may be prosecuted. So generally, even in secret recordings, there may be a problem. And we're talking about audio, not video. Conversations are private and thus have protections under the law that may result in not only criminal but civil
So when
penalties.
I'm pulled over, and let's say I'm not videotaping because it's me by myself in the car. I don't want to escalate this, but I start my phone recording. When the officer comes up, should I tell him I'm recording this?
No, I'm not telling him I'm recording. In this instance, I'm recording. If you're a party to the conversation, you can record.
Okay.
If you're a party to the conversation, you can record. A third party, though, becomes a problem to the audio or the conversation. It depends on various state laws.
Okay. Let's take a couple questions really, really quick. I know you've had your hand up the whole time. Go ahead, stand up. My young lady right here in the blue, she was waiting quite a while.
When and when not is a recording admissible in court?
Well, that's a good question. One of the things that has to be done is what's called authenticated. One must bring in a witness, either the one who took it or someone can vouch to what's being seen on that photograph or on the recording is valid and represents what they saw. It's much like a photograph. A photograph does not necessarily require the person who took the photograph to be entered into evidence in a criminal trial. It's just it must represent the scene or the place where the activity took place. I would suggest that as long as they can validate the authenticity of the photograph, or rather the recording, it should be admissible into evidence. Preferably, we would prefer the person who took it, who can testify about when they took it and where, who, what, when, and where is a good standard, and can validate that it is an authenticated and actual recording of the events that took place.
All right, gentleman right here in the red, be our last question.
All right, good evening. My name is Reverend Anthony Johnson, Associate Minister of Community Involvement and former Alabama State Representative and current Fulton County Sheriff Chaplain. And first of all, I'd like to thank all of the good police officers, the good men and women in blue who protect us each and every day. And we know that there are more good apples than bad, amen? But my question, since we're speaking of matters of the law, how can we subject these rogue police officers to the same penalties as civilians and make them accountable to the law as citizens?
I agree.
Thank you.
We have to get people on the jury. Now, what's required to become a juror? All right? Felony convictions, you lose your citizenship in most states. You don't have the right to vote. You cannot sit on a jury. You cannot hold certain jobs. You cannot get certain student loans. We have to eliminate this, as I call it, this pilgrimage to the prison system among African American men. You can't vote. We need people to sit on these juries and who will come back with fair and correct verdicts. But this is a very difficult struggle. I'm from Tennessee, and we try cases there, and you have to, when you get an all-white jury in federal court, which we often do, coming from the Alabama border, no offense, it's very difficult to get a judgment, notwithstanding the testimony clearly shows that the individual was actually the one who was responsible for certain conduct. We have to get on juries, and then we need legislation, and then we need the change of heart, as Barack Obama spoke about today.
All right. All right, well, we're going to have to pause right there. I got to bring up our next guest. Please give a round of applause, everyone. Attorney Robert Smith, Smithhurst in Nashville, Tennessee, Assistant Professor, Department of Criminal Justice at Tennessee State University.